The hotel ballroom held 500 people that night, and every single one of them went quiet when Lena Asante walked through the door. 9 years ago, she was washing their dishes. Let me tell you how it started. Lena grew up in Accra before her mother brought her to Atlanta at 14 with 2 suitcases and a phone number written on a piece of paper. The number belonged to a cousin who let them sleep on a pull-out couch for 7 months. Her mother cleaned offices at night. Lena cleaned them too, on weekends, because that was just what you did. You didn't complain about it. You didn't explain it to people. You just did it. By 23, Lena had a degree in accounting from a state school she paid for herself, 3 years of night classes, and a part-time job doing bookkeeping for a dry cleaner in Decatur. She was not the girl people looked at twice. She was the girl who refilled your coffee and made sure your invoice was correct and said, "Have a good evening," without expecting you to remember her name tomorrow. That's how she ended up at the Boateng household. The agency placed her as a household manager, a nicer way of saying she ran the house while the people who lived in it ran the world. The Boatengs were old Atlanta money, the kind that had been accumulating quietly since the 70s and didn't feel the need to announce itself. They had a house in Buckhead with 6 bedrooms and a kitchen that cost more than some people's cars. Mrs. Boateng, Auntie Florence, as the staff called her behind her back, though never to her face, was the kind of woman who could make you feel invisible and watched at the same time. And then there was Nana. Nana Boateng was 31 when Lena met him. He'd come back from London, where he'd been doing something in finance that nobody in the house could fully explain, but everyone was very proud of. He was tall, in the way that took up a room without trying. He had his father's jaw and his mother's eyes, and he smiled like he already knew what you were about to say and found it interesting anyway. Lena was not supposed to fall for him. She knew that. She knew it the way you know not to touch a hot stove, not because someone tells you, but because you understand the basic physics of the situation. But Nana had a way of not acting like what he was. He'd come into the kitchen at 11 at night and make himself a sandwich and ask Lena what she was reading. He'd sit across from her at the small table near the window and actually listen to her answer. He didn't talk to her the way his mother did, which was the way you talk to a piece of furniture you want to move to a different corner of the room. He talked to her like she was someone. "You did the reconciliation on the household accounts," he said one night, holding up the spreadsheet she'd left on the counter. "There were errors in here going back 2 years. You fixed all of them." "It's part of the job," Lena said. "Nobody asked you to go back 2 years." "I know." He looked at her for a moment. "What do you actually want to do? With your life, I mean." Nobody in that house had ever asked her that. She told him. She wanted to start her own firm. Small business accounting, the kind that helped people who couldn't afford the big names. She had a plan, she said. She'd been saving. She knew what the gaps in the market were. She said all of it quietly, like she was embarrassed to want something. Nana listened to every word. That was how it started. Slowly, then all at once, the way things do when you're not paying attention to the direction you're walking. Late nights in the kitchen turned into long conversations on the back porch. Long conversations turned into the kind of silences that say more than talking. By the time Lena understood what was happening, she was already in it. She was also already in trouble. She found out she was pregnant on a Tuesday morning in March. She sat in the bathroom off the kitchen, the one the staff used, and held that test in her hands and did not cry. She was not someone who cried easily. She thought through it very carefully, the way she thought through numbers, and she could not find a version of this that was simple. She told Nana that evening. He went very still. That was the first thing she noticed, how still he got, like something inside him had stopped moving. Okay, he said finally. Okay, she repeated. She didn't know what she expected, but she'd hoped for something more than one word. I need to think, he said. Of course, Lena said. She was already building the wall. She could feel herself doing it, brick by brick, before he even finished the sentence. He thought for 3 days. During those 3 days, he was not unkind to her. He was something worse. He was careful. He spoke to her like she was a situation that needed to be managed correctly. On the 4th day, Auntie Florence called Lena into the sitting room. Lena had been in that room many times. She'd dusted it, vacuumed it, arranged flowers in the vase by the window. She'd never been invited to sit in it. She stood near the doorway. Florence didn't waste time. That was one thing you could say about her. She was not a woman who decorated cruelty with pleasantries. I know about your condition, she said. She was looking at a spot just past Lena's shoulder, like the conversation was too minor to deserve her full attention. I'm going to give you 2 weeks' pay and a reference letter. I think it's best you move on. Lena heard the words. She processed them. She said, Does Nana know you're doing this? Nana has made his position clear, Florence said. He has responsibilities, a future. There are things planned for him that require clarity, Lena said. I think you understand. She did understand. She understood exactly what was happening. She understood that the woman in front of her had looked at her entire life and decided it weighed nothing. She understood that Nana had let his mother walk into that room instead of coming himself. She understood all of it in about 4 seconds. And then she said, very quietly, All right. She did not beg. She did not cry. She took the envelope Florence slid across the coffee table and she walked out of that room, and she packed her bag, and she was gone by 9 o'clock that night. She never heard from Nana. Not when she moved into the 1-bedroom in East Point that she could barely afford. Not when she started showing. Not when she went into labor at Grady Memorial on a Thursday afternoon with nobody in the waiting room for her but her mother, who took 2 buses to get there. His name was Eli. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. He had Lena's forehead and his father's eyes. And when she looked at him in that hospital bed, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Something solid, like a floor appearing under your feet when you thought you were going to fall. She called her mother in. He looks like trouble, her mother said, and smiled. Good trouble, Lena said. She was 25 years old. She had $400 in her checking account, a newborn, a lease that ran out in 3 months, and a plan she'd been building in her head for 2 years. She spread the plan out on her kitchen table after Eli went to sleep that night, and she looked at every piece of it. Then she got to work. She started small. She did taxes for a woman from her church who ran a hair salon out of her basement. Then the woman's sister, who had a catering operation she was trying to make legitimate. Then a man from the neighborhood, who'd been running a landscaping crew for 6 years and had no idea he was losing money on 3 of his contracts because his pricing was wrong. Lena found it. She fixed it. He told someone. Word moves differently in communities where people have been burned before by people who charged too much and delivered too little. When you find someone who's actually good and actually honest, you tell everyone you know. You tell them fast. She named the firm Asante Advisory. She filed the paperwork herself. She built the website herself. She kept Eli in a bouncer next to her desk while she worked, and when he cried, she picked him up and she kept working. She didn't think about Nana. She decided very deliberately not to think about Nana, and for the most part it worked, because she was too tired and too busy, and too focused to afford the weight of it. Eli was 2 when she hired her first employee, a young woman named Priya, who was just out of school and needed someone to take a chance on her. Lena took the chance. Eli was 4 when they moved out of East Point and into a proper apartment in Midtown. 2 bedrooms. Lena had a real desk now. Eli was 6 when Asante Advisory landed its first corporate client, a mid-sized logistics company that had been overpaying their previous accounting firm for years. Lena put together a presentation that showed them exactly how much and exactly why. She got the contract. She stayed up until 2 in the morning to celebrate alone with a glass of wine and the specific feeling of knowing you built something real. She did not tell Eli who his father was. He was too young. She told him his father was someone who had not been ready. She told him that was not his fault or hers, and that the 2 of them were enough. Eli seemed to accept this with the equanimity of a child who has always known his mother means what she says. She thought about Nana sometimes. She would be lying if she said she didn't. Not with longing, exactly. More the way you think about a scar. You don't wish for the wound back. You just notice it's there. What she heard, through the loose network of people who knew people, was that he had married a woman named Vivian, a doctor from a good family, exactly the kind of clarity Florence had required. That the wedding had been lavish, that they lived in a house in Buckhead that was different from his parents' house but equally impressive, that he was doing well. She filed that information away and went back to work. It was Eli's teacher who told her about the event. She was at a school pickup, and the teacher mentioned that Asante Advisory had been listed as a sponsor in the program for the Atlanta Business Excellence Awards, the kind of gala that happened once a year and mattered more for who was in the room than for the trophies themselves. The teacher was impressed. Lena thanked her and buckled Eli into his car seat and drove home. She almost didn't go. She had a full week. She had a pitch deck to finish for a meeting on Monday. She had Eli's soccer practice on Saturday morning. But her methodical man, named Porter, who had been with her for 4 years, said, "Lena, you have to go. We sponsored a table. People need to see your face," so she went. She wore green, a deep emerald that her mother said made her look like she owned the room before she walked into it. She wore her hair natural and up. She wore the earrings her mother had given her when Eli was born. Gold, simple, the kind that last. She did not know Nana would be there. She saw him from across the ballroom, near the bar, in a dark suit, laughing at something someone had said. He looked the same, a little older. She registered his presence the way you register a weather change, a shift in the atmosphere, automatic, physical. She did not change course. She moved through the room and she greeted people, and she accepted a compliment about the work her firm had done for a small manufacturer in Gwinnett County. And she thanked the event organizers for including Asante Advisory in the program. And she was standing with Porter and 2 other people when she heard her name from behind her. She turned around. Nana was standing 4 feet away. He looked like he'd been working up to it. There was something careful in his expression again, that same carefulness she remembered from 9 years ago, and it hit her like a door closing. "Lena," he said, "I didn't know you'd be here. I'm a sponsor," she said. Her voice was level. She was proud of that. He looked at her for a moment. Then he looked at the room, at the logo on the program, at the table card with Asante Advisory printed on it. Something moved behind his eyes. "I've heard about your company," he said. "What you've built is remarkable." She let that sit for exactly 1 second. "Thank you," she said. "I started again. I owe you an apology. A real one. Not just. I've wanted to say that for a long time." Around them, the room was loud with conversation and music and the particular energy of people performing success for each other. Lena was very still. "You don't owe me an apology, Nana," she said. "What happened, happened. I made a life from it, a good one." "I know," he said. "I can see that." "The question," she said, "was never what I would become. I always knew that." She said it without anger, without heat, just as a fact, the way you state a number that has already been calculated and verified. The question was whether you'd be someone worth knowing while I got there. He didn't say anything. You answered it, she said, years ago. Porter materialized at her elbow. Bless him, he had perfect timing, and whispered that the program was starting. Lena nodded. She looked at Nana one more time, not unkindly, and then she walked toward the stage, where her firm's name was listed among the evening's sponsors, where people who had watched her build something from nothing were waiting to say her name into a microphone. She did not look back. She won the award that night, Emerging Firm of the Year, which made Porter actually tear up, which she would tease him about for months. She stood at the podium, and she thanked her mother, who was home watching Eli, and had made Lena promise to call the minute it was over. She thanked Priya and Porter, and every person who had trusted her with their numbers when they didn't have to. She thanked the clients who'd taken a chance on a firm that was just a woman and a laptop and a plan. She did not mention Nana. There was nothing to mention. He was not part of the story, not the part that mattered. He was the thing that happened before the story started. What she said at the end was this: 9 years ago, someone looked at me and decided what I was worth. I spent 9 years proving the calculation wrong. Not for them. For my son, who is 7 years old and already better at math than I was at his age, and who I tell every single day that where you start is not where you have to end. The room clapped. Some people cried. Lena stepped off the podium and went to find her phone to call her mother. In the car on the way home, she thought about Eli, asleep by now with his soccer cleats probably still on, because he always forgot to take them off. And she thought about the office they were moving into next month, because they'd outgrown the current one, and she thought about the new contract she was pitching Monday, and the hire she needed to make by end of quarter. She thought about Nana for approximately half a block. Then she turned on the radio and drove the rest of the way home in the good, clean silence of someone who has nothing left to prove to anyone but herself, and has already started. If you're still watching, I want to ask you something. What do you do when someone underestimates you? Do you try to convince them they're wrong, or do you just go build the thing they said you couldn't? Tell me in the comments. And if this story stayed with you, you know what to do. We'll see you in the next one.